Hello Internet, welcome to Asian Horror Stories. Today's story is The Head by Serena, Singapore. The following true story was related to me by my mother, and it had scarred her for life in such a way that she always refrained from taking staircases no matter where she might be. Her story happened about 15 years ago. It was at the beginning of the year 2004, and Chinese New Year was just around the corner. Everywhere you go during this period, loud and joyous Chinese New Year songs will be blasting at supermarkets, shopping malls, food courts, and Chinese homes. This typically goes on for about 2 weeks before the festive ambience dies down. A typical Singaporean stays in a high-rise building with hundreds of little pigeonholes. We call these buildings HDB flats, and they are mostly between 12 to 20 stories high. During the Chinese festive season, it is very common to hear the shuffling of mahjong tiles echoing within the walls of these HDB flats. Mahjong is a very popular Chinese game played between 4 people. It involves searching for the best combination of the tiles while the 4 players try to best each other. Because the little mahjong tiles are usually made from plastic or bamboo, shuffling all 136 of them on the table will give off the iconic clinking sounds. Non-Chinese Singaporeans are probably annoyed during this period as the noise can carry on till the wee hours in the morning. It was a common habit of my mother, Susan, to visit her sister during Chinese New Year. Susan's sister, Auntie Samantha, stays on the 8th floor. They will often invite friends or family over to Auntie Samantha's HDB home to play a game of mahjong till late. During one of these mahjong sessions, Susan felt really tired. They had been playing the game for 4 hours straight, and it was already 1 a.m. after midnight. Adding on to her fatigue, she had been working overtime for the past weekend. Susan is a fashionable white-collared woman working at a bank. She was in her early 50s, and all that staring at the numbers on her monitor screen over the years have slowly deteriorated her eyesight. At 1 a.m. after midnight, Susan can no longer differentiate the pictures on the mahjong tiles. Everything looked blurry behind her contact lenses. She decided to end the game and bid her sister and friends goodbyes. Stepping out of her sister's home, Susan pondered for a moment. The elevator was about 400 meters away, while the staircase was just around the corner. Descending the staircase from the 8th floor seemed like the easier, faster choice, Susan thought to herself. Holding tightly onto the handrails, she began to descend the stairs, carefully placing her foot on the grey concrete steps. As she slowly approached the 3rd floor, she felt a cold and ominous sensation running from the top of her neck down her spine. In her blurry vision, she thought she saw something dark and hairy floating at the other end of the handrails. Squinting her eyes, she realized what it really was. It was a human head floating without a body. Long disheveled grey hair covered most of the head, revealing only a single eye, a nose, and a mouth twisted with a grin. Black muscle tendons hung from a severed neck stump. The skin looked wrinkled, dark, and decaying. But the worst of it all was the single bloodshot eye that was staring intensely at Susan, as if it was waiting to pounce. Susan paused. She was standing at the top of the stairs while the head was at the bottom. She could turn around and run for her dear life, or she could scream at the top of her lungs. No, the Chinese believe that spirits generally ignore the living, often because we cannot see them. Spirits exist on a different dimensional plane from the living. However, if the spirit realized a living, breathing person could actually see it under unknown circumstances, the spirit would probably haunt them. So, the best way to survive a paranormal encounter is to ignore them entirely. Susan's legs felt like jelly, but she was determined not to let the ghostly head realize that she can see it. With a deep breath, Susan descended the steps, her eyes glued to the staircase as she slowly got closer to the ugly spirit. In the corner of her eyes, Susan can feel the ghostly head turning deliberately to face her. The 10-second descent felt like an agonizing 10 minutes. When Susan finally reached the lower floor, she dared not run. Her every step felt heavier as she began to feel dizzy. Just then, she heard heavy breathing behind her. Was the ghostly head falling behind? However, if Susan ran at this very moment, the head would definitely saw through her bluff. Don't turn around, don't turn around, don't turn around, Susan muttered to herself repeatedly. When she finally reached the ground floor, the heavy breathing was gone. Susan still didn't dare to look back, but she finally found herself half sprinting back to her home. Ever since that horrifying ordeal, my mother Susan never visited Auntie Samantha ever again. Whenever there is a mahjong session, they would gather at our home instead, much to my dismay. But at least Susan is safe, and we would probably never visit Auntie Samantha again.